Hello students, today we're going to talk about writing equations. First, let's look at some key words within verbal expressions. So, we're going to look at key words that mean to add, subtract, multiply, divide, equal, less than, and greater than. So, first let's look at addition. If you see the words plus, more than, the sum of, the total of, increased by, combined, and added to, all of these words mean to add. So if you see any of these words, it means addition. So let's look at an example. A number plus 10. So since we don't know what that number is, we give it a variable. In this case, I gave it n, plus 10. Now let's look at subtraction. Minus, less than, the difference of, less, reduced by, fewer than, decreased by, and subtracted from. All of these mean to subtract. So if you see any of these words, it means subtraction. The main ones you need to focus on, though, are less than and less, and maybe the difference of. Those are the main ones that you'll see. So let's look at an example. A number reduced by 4. So since we don't know what that number is, we give it r. Reduced by means to subtract. So we know that we're subtracting. And then 4. So that's where we get r minus 4. Now, let's go and look at an example for multiplication. For multiplication, we have multiplied by, times, per, product of, increased by a factor of, twice, trace. Anytime you see any of these words, it means multiplication. So, the main ones that you need to focus on, though, that you'll see the most are per, product of, and twice. Remember, that means to multiply by 2. So whatever it's talking about, multiply it by 2. So let's look at an example. If I have 2 times a number, so we have 2 times a number. Since we don't know what that number is, we're going to give it a variable. But remember, we don't write a number next to a variable with a dot in the middle. We just write it as 2w, okay? Because a number next to a variable means to multiply. Now let's look at some words for division. We have the quotient of, divided by, the ratio of, decreased by a factor of, percent, which means divide by 100. So these are the ones that mean to divide, mean division. Now the main ones that you'll see are the quotient of and the ratio of. Okay, remember ratio is just a fraction, and remember a fraction is just division. So let's look at an example. If we have a number divided by 2, so a number, we don't know what that means, divided by 2. So instead of writing it like this, x divided by 2, we write x, and then our long division bar, and then 2 at the bottom. So x divided by 2. Now let's look at some for equals. We have equals is the same as, yields, amounts to, gives, are, was, were, and will be. So all of these means equal. Now, the main ones that you'll see is, yields, and maybe will be. Those are the main ones, but you need to know that all of these mean equal. Okay? Now let's look at less than. The words you'll see for less than are going to be is less than, is fewer than. Now, notice that when we were talking about subtraction, less than was one of those words as well. Sorry for the handwriting. Less than was one of those words as well. Well, the way that you know if it's subtraction or if you know it's a less than sign is the word is. If it has is, it's a less than sign. If it does not contain is, like if we look in front of this less than, there's no is, there's not an is there, then it means to subtract. So that is how you can tell the difference between the two. Okay, let's look at greater than. Greater than is greater than and is more than. Again, the same thing goes for greater than and addition. Remember, for addition, we saw the word more than. My handwriting is kind of bad on this. And again, the way we know the difference is the word is. If it has is in front, then it's going to be greater than. No is, there's not an is, then it's addition. Okay? So that's how you can tell the difference between the two. Now, is less than or equals to? So remember, equals to has this line under here, okay, for equals to. So the words for that are going to be is at most, is not more than, is less than or equal to. Now, do not get confused with this one, is at most. Most students think that that should be greater than. But if I tell you the most money you have at the grocery store is $50, you cannot spend more than $50. You have to spend $50 or less. So is at most is going to be less than. Now let's look at greater than or equal to. Is at least, is no less than, is greater than or equal to. Again, do not get confused with is at least then. Is at least. Okay? Because if I say the least you can make in Algebra 1 to pass is an 80, can you make less than an 80? No, you have to make an 80 or above. So is at least means greater than or equal to. So do not let those two words mess you up. Now let's look at some examples. A number plus 10. So that's going to be n plus 10. Again, you can use whatever variable you would like. You do not have to use the one that I'm using. A number increased by 2. N, or R in this case, plus 2. 8 increased by a number. 8 plus x. Now this one's a little bit tricky. 2 less than a number. Less than is a tricky one. Now, there's no is in front, so we know that it's going to be a minus sign. So we know that we're going to use a minus sign. However, with less than, whatever is in front of the less than is going to go behind the minus sign. And whatever is behind less than is going to go in front of the minus sign. So in this case, my answer would be x minus 2 or y minus 2. Okay? So again, whatever is in front of the less than goes behind the minus sign, and whatever is behind the less than goes in front of the minus sign. 12 decreased by a number. That would be 12 minus w. 3 times a number, so that's just going to be 3x, 3b. 4 times a number increased by 3. So we know we're going to do 4 times, so that's 4 times a number, so that's 4x, increased by, so that means to add 3. So I have 4 times a number increase by means to add 3. So I'm going to have 4n plus 3. Okay? 2 less than 10 times a number. So again, we have that keyword less than. That's a trigger. So whatever is behind it is going to go in front of the minus sign. And whatever's in front of it is going to go behind the minus sign. So in this case, I would have 10n minus 2, or 10a minus 2. 30 more than 5 times a number. So that's just going to be 5x plus 30. Or you could write it, because it is addition, and remember addition is commutative. You can write it either way. 30 plus, because more than means plus, 5 times a number. So either way would be correct. We just tend to like to write our variables first. 8 more than the product of 3 and a number. Okay, so let's pull out our keywords. We have more than, and we have product of. So, more than, remember, means to add. So we're going to take 8 more than the product of 3 and a number. So remember, a product means to multiply. So we're going to take 3 and a number and multiply them. So that would be 3x. Or I could write it 3x plus 8. Remember, addition and multiplication are commutative. You can write them either way. A number decreased by 20 equals 36. So we have a number decreased by, so decreased by is our keyword, and equals is our keyword. So we have a number decreased by, well, what does decreased by mean? Yes, it does mean to subtract. So we have a number decreased by 20 equals 36. What number increased by 25 is 40? So let's pull out our keywords again. Our keywords are increased by and is. So what number? Well, do we know what number that is? No, we don't. So we're going to give it a variable. So n, increased by. What does increased by mean? You're right, it does mean to add. 25 is, what's is? Awesome job. It does mean to equal. And 40. So I'd have n plus 25 equals 40. Okay? Good job. Hope you took some very good notes. And have an awesome evening.